Are you ready to become a change maker? Our 48-week postgraduate program in public policy or the PGP may be just the thing for you. This hybrid program is designed to give you both the theoretical foundation and hands-on experience needed to excel in policy making. With a mix of expert-led webinars, in-person workshops, and policy simulation exercises, you'll gain real-world skills along with personalized mentorship. Through our policy programs, we connect good people to good ideas and good networks. Apply now at the link in the description to make an impact.
Welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast by the Takshashila Institution. We are a bunch of policy nerds based in Bengaluru, and we like bringing fresh perspectives to Indian affairs and Indian perspectives to global affairs. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for today's chat.
Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of All Things Policy. This is Swathi Kalyani, your host, and I'm research analyst with the Geospatial Programme at the Takshashila Institution. And today I have with me Arpan A. Chakravarty, research fellow at the India Foundation, New Delhi. Arpan, please introduce yourself.
Hello everyone, I'm Arpan Chakravarty and I'm a research fellow at India Foundation. I specifically focus on the interdisciplinary study of law and national security here. And previously, I have been a fellow on Network for Advanced Study on Pakistan at Takshashila Institute, where I was doing my research on Indus Treaty and the international law aspects of it.
Great, as you have put the keywords out there. So our discussion today is going to be on the Indus Water Treaty. And to give a brief introduction, it's basically a treaty, a river water treaty, which was signed in 1960 between India and Pakistan. And the World Bank was the broker for the whole treaty. And it's said to be one of the world's most successful water sharing agreements. It governs the use of the Indus River system, dividing the 6 rivers, the tributaries across it between the two countries. And actually, despite decades of hostility and conflict between the two countries, the treaty has endured, though not without controversy. And today's episode, we dive into its history, possibly the challenges and the future of this landmark agreement that continues to shape, geopolitics and water security between these two countries. So, Arpan, just give me this introduction about the origin of Indus Water Treaty. What was that point of trigger which caused it?
Well, Swati, I believe that in order to, if one has to understand Indus Water Treaty, one has to also look at the bigger picture, which is the India-Pakistan relationship post-partition. The division in 1947, I believe, it didn't only create two separate nations, but it split a very agrarian state, which was Punjab, which was heavily dependent on Indus Water River system for irrigation. So before partition, only Punjab region of both India and Pakistan had 33 million acres of irrigated land. And after the split, Pakistan got 20 million acres, more than half in terms of water flow as well. Pakistan was more favored because they had more canals on their aspect. For India, I believe at that point of time, the priority, I believe, was very clear that we needed to develop irrigation to meet the needs for our growing population and to boost the domestic production of our country at that point of time. And at that point of time, Pakistan received substantial external funding as well for development of their canal construction and all of these things. But the immediate concern at that point of time was that how these two young nations would share water, which are now separate entities. So the first step, I will also look at this particular discussion. I would also like to bring in the aspects of socio-legal aspects, which would be the first step which happened was the standstill agreement between the engineers from East Pakistan and the West Punjab, which is India, on December 20, 1947. So this was more of a temporary arrangement to maintain the pre-partition water levels. And after which came in the Inter-Dominion Agreement, also known as the Delhi Agreement, which was signed on May 3rd, 1948. So under this, India and Pakistan, they both agreed to continue supplying water to each other, but in return, Pakistan had to pay for the water. However, there were a lot of tension between the sharing of water, and until 1947, there was a deadlock. In during this process, I believe India had also proposed a joint commission of judges to fairly resolve the dispute regarding the Indus Water Treaty, which was on the basis of the 1948 terms. But Pakistan at that point of time also rejected it, calling it unfair, I believe. And seeing that there was no breakthrough in sight, by 1952, Pakistan insisted on taking this matter to the United Nations Security Council. India, of course, at that point of time as well, was strongly opposed to the third party involvement in resolving a bilateral issue. And at this point of time, I believe that it was very clear that this particular Indus Water Treaty has to come in, and it has to be structured. It has to be long-term agreement between both the countries. And I believe that is where the World Bank also stepped in to facilitate the negotiation. And over the years, there were various committees, such as the Anderson Committee on Waters in 1956, which was been formed to explore solutions to solve this particular issue. And during this particular time as well, the Helsinki rules on the use of water of international river were also being negotiated and being formed at the United Nations. So I believe after years of negotiation, the Indus Water Treaty was signed in 1960, and but you see that it wasn't a very straightforward process, and it was been shaped by historical disputes, political considerations at that point of time, and most importantly, I believe the need for water security on both sides. So India is entitled to use the water of the eastern rivers, which is Ravi, Beas, and Satluj, and the limited use of western river, which is the Indus, Jhelum, and Chenab.
Great. That was a really long timeline. I've like a few cases that we have come across, which has been quite famous, has been this Kishan Ganga hydroelectric project dispute, right? And I'm sure there were multiple others also. So, are there can you talk about these one or two cases which actually probably India and Pakistan resolved, or is it like still undergoing conflict? And there are these different levels of resolution mechanism that this treaty includes,
Yes.
right? So, what are those procedures?
So I would first explain what is the three-level dispute mechanism which was being followed, and after which I will
Okay.
discuss the two or three prominent cases that we have seen in the Indus Water Treaty. Right. So the
Yeah.
step one, like there are three steps in this whole dispute resolution mechanism. The step one is mostly on the basis of the question, which is called the question stage. So it always begins with what we call a question. Like, for example, let's say one country, India or Pakistan, has a concern about water usage or dam projects. So the agreed party starts by writing a letter to the other through their respective Indus Water Commissioners. The Permanent Indus Water Commission then steps in to examine the issue. And ideally, this is where the matter should be resolved through discussion and technical clarification as required. But if the commission can't resolve it, the issue moves on to a level and it becomes a difference. So the step two is the difference stage. So now, once a
Okay.
question escalates to a difference, a neutral expert is brought in. And this is where someone with technical expertise in hydrology or water management, they are specifically appointed at the request of the commission. The neutral experts then evaluates the technical and the legal aspects of the case, and they provide recommendations. And here is the key part, that if the neutral expert feels that the issue is too complex or politically sensitive, they can recommend that both commissioner can treat the difference as a dispute. And that is when the case moves on to the next level, which is a formal arbitration, which we call the dispute stage, which is the step three. So once the matter is being classified as a dispute, it goes straight to the Permanent Court of Arbitration. The Permanent Court of Arbitration is the full authority. It conducts full-fledged legal proceedings. It appoints its arbitrators, one from Pakistan, one from India, and one from a neutral perspective. And then they deliver a judgment on this particular issue. So in essence, that the process starts at a technical level with commissioners who are discussing it, and then it moves to an independent expert for review, and only in rare cases does it escalate to the permanent court of arbitration for formal arbitrations. And this particular system is designed in order to encourage resolution at the earliest stages, and we have seen that in past some cases such as the Kishan Ganga and the Baglihar dispute, which has gone all the way to the arbitration aspects. While all these cases were settled through the IWT framework, the treaty, I believe, is often used by Pakistan to stall a lot of India's developmental project. That's why I believe that these are the aspects which needs to be changed. Coming to the second point, which were being brought, which was questioned by you, that what are the two prominent cases in the Indus Water Treaty? The first was the Baglihar Dam dispute in 2005-2007. So Pakistan had objected again to India's construction of the Baglihar hydro power project on the Chenab River. They claimed that this particular development is violating the treaty. So a neutral expert was being appointed by the World Bank, and they specifically ruled in India's favor, allowing that the project can move ahead with minor modification. So I believe this specifically also reinforced India's right to harness its allotted water resources while adhering to the treaties of the provision. The second dispute that I remember is also on Kishan Ganga dispute, which is when Pakistan contested India's Kishan Ganga hydroelectric power project on the Jhelum tributary. The International Court of Arbitration at that point of time also ruled that India could proceed with the project while ensuring that a minimum environmental flow is in the Indus water. And this, I believe, this particular decision also showcases the India's ability to develop its own resources within the treaty guidelines, but also highlight that how restrictive this particular treaty has been in order for India in specific to utilize the full share of water.
Great. Also, I remember like this was the case, right? When even in Ratley project, I think
Yes.
where Pakistan wanted court of arbitration, India preferred a neutral expert, and then this just World Bank just allows both
Right.
these processes to happen in parallel.
Yes.
Quite complex in that sense. Also, like so, the one definition if you look for Indus Water Treaty, which comes is always that it is a successful treaty, right? The successful global water sharing treaty, whatever. So, what made it successful, and why is it called it has worked, or is it positive, or has it really worked? Is the question.
Well, that's a very interesting question, and I think it is very important to first acknowledge that how rare it is for a water sharing treaty to survive for this long, especially when two countries
I know.
are at loggerhead with each other. Now, if you ask me, one of the biggest reasons for the longevity of this particular treaty is, I believe, that it is India's patience and commitment. That despite there has been so many
Okay.
provocations from Pakistan's side, you look at the timeline that we have seen. There has been countless
Hmm.
confidence building measures. In 1999, India had initiated confidence building measures such as the Lahore bus service, the Samjhota Express. But soon after that, we had the Kargil conflict which had erupted. In 2003, both countries had agreed on a ceasefire agreement. Yet we witnessed in 2008 the Mumbai attacks. Again in 2012, there were diplomatic efforts which were being derailed again when Indian soldier in specific was beheaded by the Pakistani army at the border. And even after Prime Minister Narendra Modi extended a hand of friendship in 2015, making a surprise visit to Lahore for Nawaz Sharif's granddaughter wedding, and, and how do we see Pakistan responding to that? We saw Pathankot in 2016, Uri in 2016, Pulwama in 2019. So these are specific instances, I believe, which has been setbacks to this particular treaty, and even then, India has stayed committed to these treaty. And we should not forget the amount of wars that we have seen. And this has also,
Hmm.
I mean, if you remember, I also remember this statement by uh, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, and this was when he signed the treaty in 1960. He openly admitted in the Lok Sabha that India is essentially purchasing a settlement, and we have now purchased a peace to that extent recognizing that that both the countries were young at that point of time and they needed stability. But now I believe that there are times have changed, and even when we have seen so many changes in so many aspects of dam making, I think now things are shifting. And you must have seen that India has recently shared their notice seeking amendments in the treaty. And these are some aspects, I
Mhm.
believe, which are very important to assimilate in our coming times.
Right. And also, so yes, surely India does have a role to play in why this treaty is running so well, at least according to the reports and everything. So, also, has India followed the agreements made with this treaty? Like, there were these data sharing mechanisms, right, which were part of this. And also, because as you said, so many incidents have happened and so many obstacles and so many repercussions from both sides. So, has that agreement been kept, or has there been any change in that?
I think India has largely adhered to all the treaty provisions, no doubt about that. And we have consistently shared river flow data and details regarding hydro projects as per the agreement. The issue, however, isn't about, I believe, India's compliance. It is about how Pakistan chooses to use this particular treaty. You see that Pakistan often uses the Indus Water Treaty more as a diplomatic weapon rather than a genuine mechanism for resolving water related issues. Instead of using this dispute resolution framework in Annexure F and G under the Indus Water Treaty in good faith, they have repeatedly escalated these technical matters to international stage and unnecessarily dragging third parties to this particular dispute. And now I do think if you are specifically referring to why India had stopped sharing additional hydrological data with Pakistan since 2019, that is a different matter, I believe.
Oh,
This was not a requirement under the treaty, and it was a goodwill gesture from India, which was extended since 1989. And it was an arrangement which was been renewed every year. And we should not forget what happened in 2019, the Pulwama attacks. So, given the security situation and clear lack of reciprocity from Pakistan, India has decided to end that extra arrangement. And even today, under the actual treaty provision, I believe that India obligates by sharing all the advanced information or extraordinary discharge and flood flows, and we do share all that data when necessary.
and I think also compared to a lot of neighbors itself, or even like looking at the other river disputes, India has been quite good in terms that it has never used water as a political
Absolutely.
weapon or a clear hydropolitical weapon. Like if we look at China and this, how the mega dam project has created waves across
Right?
the neighboring countries. So India has always tried to maintain that. Even with respect to Bangladesh, there is always a possibility of cordial conversations with this country. So let's talk about the World Bank
Yeah.
now. What are the challenges that probably India is facing, due to this position of World Bank as part of this broker of this treaty, and also because obviously it's been stagnant, and there has not been evolution of the treaty with times and with development with technology. As you said, dams have changed. Now we have the run of the river system, but still this conflicts are still going on. So what are the major challenges that India or its states are facing, and how is World Bank kind of an obstacle probably in this?
I believe, to be very honest, that the fact that today India and Pakistan are where are right now, that it is also because of the procedural error which has been made by the World Bank in addressing specifically in these cases. The World Bank, first of all,
Mhm.
failed to adhere to the mechanism that states how and when a neutral expert can be appointed. So, according to Article 9, Clause 6 of the treaty provision, the appointment of the neutral expert is done only after the process of inability to settle the question phase comes. And it clearly mentions that arbitration between both states shall not apply to any differences which has been dealt with by the neutral expert. Thus, by allowing this specific thing, the World Bank has started two separate legal proceedings, and this is also setting a wrong precedent for international organizations. So, in this present case as well that you had referred earlier, after the World Bank had received two requests, one from India's side to appoint a neutral expert, referent to clause 2.1 of the Article 9 of the Settlement of Dispute and Treaty, disputes of the treaty, and another one from Pakistan to institute court of arbitration referred in Article 9, clause 5 of the treaty. So the World Bank allowed both the processes parallelly. Even during the process,
Correct.
when the neutral expert, Mr. Michael Lino, he, in his own personal capacity as a neutral expert with respect to matters which were being placed before these bodies, he specifically said that the neutral expert was denied being part of the coordinated approach of the Permanent Court of Arbitration. So this is one of the reasons why India has not decided to participate in the proceedings in The Hague. And a major challenge that always comes up in this dispute is to settle the differences by delinking water issues from territorial disputes and trying to bring changes in a way that both the countries have to settle and address these aspects. And I think this is the reason why India had also issued a notice to Pakistan seeking amendments. And this specifically, the parallel proceeding aspects by the World Bank has made this dispute resolution even more complicated. I believe that there are various reasons, which, according to me, is that it is also because Pakistan's inability to manage its water resources. So, if you have been reading through this particular case, the storage capacity in Pakistan is reducing and is declining. Even within Pakistan, Sindh and Punjab province, they are fighting for the water shares. And you also have to
Okay.
understand that the technological advancement in dam construction has come to an extent that after 60 years there are a lot of changes, modern innovations which has
Hmm.
come up, engineering innovations which needs to be accounted for. And finally, the most important aspects also comes at the climate change and the sustainability aspect. Do you think at that point of time, 60 years back, these factors were taken into consideration? These were
Right.
not being taken into consideration, and these are critical these are very critical considerations. And I think that is also the reasons I believe that this treaty must have survived for decades, and but now it is at a crossroad. So the question that always comes up to us is that should we continue with the framework designed in 1950s, or is it time to update it for the challenges of the 21st century?
And I think also one important aspect is that hydropower generates that electricity. It is one of the, I mean, at least for India, or as we say, like it is one of the cheapest source of renewable energy
Yes,
available out there
yes,
until other technologies are developed. And that's when, like, also because these border areas have such rural villages which surely like are still might be like requesting or fighting for the just right to electricity. And that is where, I mean, we can't deny that we can't, like, the importance of dams, at least in that context.
absolutely,
So it is necessary to have these conversations and resolve this, so that it's not just about the politics, it's about this society which is dependent on such resources just for their livelihood also. I mean, the agriculture aspect, given that, also again just the standard of life where
absolutely,
this right to electricity comes,
absolutely.
right? And yeah, like, so what more can be done? Like, can we look at some recommendations possibly for how this treaty should go further, like down the line?
Well, to be very honest, I believe let's start with the acceptance of the fact that we need a change in the dispute. We need a change in the treaty. We need amendments which need to be made. And at this point of time, we should not have third parties involved in this whole process.
Okay.
Like I specifically would
Okay.
not recommend the World Bank, considering how they have messed up so many aspects. So World Bank should not be party to it. And at this point of time, it should be just a bilateral dispute between India and Pakistan. And
Mhm.
I think first of all,
And
Pakistan
yeah,
also has to start looking at how they are going to manage their water resources. We know that how situations are in Pakistan when it comes to their economic conditions and all of these things. But in
correct.
order to not blame it on India, they also have to start working on their own capacity building rather than fighting court litigations. I think these are the way ahead, I believe, which can be included.
And like, how important do you think are these, hydropolitic based discussions and agreements going to be, important at least in the future? Like, it's not just, for example, now we're talking about Indus Water Treaty, but there are so many rivers that India shares with its neighbors, and there are so many other rivers also. Like, for example, in Africa, there are so many treaties going on and disputes going on. So, how important do you think are these hydropolitic discussions in just the overall development or the economic development or the social development of a region itself?
Well, I believe that that hydropower electricity is one of the most important aspects. Like I still remember in 2012, there was a demonstration and a protest in the Jammu Kashmir Parliament, breaking through all the party lines that they want the Indus Water Treaty to be gone because they were not being able to use
Okay.
their own water in specific for their own self. And even today, I believe
Right.
that in a lot of parts of Jammu Kashmir, which still struggles with severe power deficits, and they have been making their point to the center that that these are certain places that we need to work on. Hydroelectricity is like an untapped resource that India has not been using in the Jammu Kashmir region. I think we should first start with that.
Great. Uh, Thank you so much, Arpan. Like that, you gave me a lot of insights into the treaty itself, and probably also changed the perspective of how we always look at it as we said in the beginning, the successful water treaty. But there are challenges, there are obstacles, there is a kind of stagnation within it, which needs to be changed, and probably there'll be more discussions around it, and some changes might happen over time.
Let's hope.
Thank you,
Let's
Arpan.
hope. Thank you so much for giving me
Yes.
this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you liked our show, dive into Takshashila's research on technology, strategy, and economic affairs. Check us out at our Twitter handle @TakshashilaINST or our website takshashila.org.in.